Welcome to Soft Cock Appreciation Week 2024. I invite you to get comfortable as you join us for what I like to call cockversations, discussions, or grown folk putting their heads together and sharing ideas in authentic and real ways. Now be aware we don't hold back in our language, and what follows is not for overly sensitive or easily kerfuffled ears. And before we dive in, remember, what is shared here is not meant to be, nor is it a replacement for medical advice. Whenever you notice changes in your body or that of a loved one, especially in how the penis is functioning, please seek out medical consultation. What the penis is saying could literally save a life. Thank you for supporting us. If you take away something useful from this, please let us know, write a review, spread the word, and keep coming back for more. Are you ready? Let's do it. Hello, everybody. I am Erica Leroye, your hostess for Soft Cock Appreciation Week 2024. So excited to have you with us and to be sharing in this exploration, journey, quest that we're on to maximize our ability to feel and experience pleasure no matter how our body chooses to show up. Soft Cock Appreciation Week really has in its heart that no matter how you show up for sexual intimacy and pleasure is totally okay. And there are so many ways to enjoy, no matter what your penis is choosing to do. And also that when the penis decides not to show up, that often it is a barometer or has things to tell us that maybe we can pay attention to. Today we have with us Jill Carnay. Jill Carnay is someone very special in my personal life. She is my dear friend and my sister. And I've invited her today to share with us from the world of sound and from the world of the body and the soma is what we call it. So Jill, will you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yes. Hi. It's wonderful to be here to connect my world with your world. Yes. So I'm a vocal embodiment coach and a somatic voice teacher. And really what I do is I work with people in coming more into their bodies, into their and presence moment in their bodies via the voice. So that could be with singing, that could be with sounding, that can be with speaking, but really exploring what does it feel like from the inside out to make sound and be heard and feel the reverberations of that. And I love that, that I get to bring this newly for me, into the realm of men's sexual health and health in general, because I have felt just over the years of teaching in my own practice how working with the voice truly is a wellness and health practice.
Wonderful. Well, I'm so excited to have you, and what we're going to talk about today together and share with the people who are watching and listening really is something that not that many people work on in the world of sexuality, and I'm really curious about how the sounding in this experience of sex as a movement and play activity can bring more pleasure and even more health to people as they're playing alone or with partners. It's wonderful. So before we get fully into it, always like to check. I know that cock is not necessarily a word that everybody resonates with. So is that something you feel okay with? Would you like to focus on a different word? How does cock feel in your body mind?
Yeah, cock feels good. Very present.
Excellent. Great. Good.
Cock. Yes.
Cock. Yes. The sound of it. Cock.
Very.
Yes. We have cock. We have dick.
Yeah, dick, another hard.
Another, right. And then we
have a whole other journey with that.
Penis.
Yes.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Yes, we're definitely already on a sound exploration.
Yeah. Willy.
Lovely. Peter. Okay, so one of the reasons that I was excited to have this conversation with you today is I often see and hear from people that I work with, and this is even in all genders, that people are either really comfortable bringing sound into their sex life or they're really uncomfortable bringing sound into their sex life.
Hmm.
And, for some people, that's because there was maybe some shame in the beginning of their own individual masturbation exploration, or, they didn't want to get caught, or maybe as they went into, um, the time of life of parenting that, kids were in the house. So sex had to be something that was quiet and on the sly. So sometimes what I hear is making sound isn't natural. And my response is, well, look at the animal kingdom, right? They're pretty noisy when they're copulating.
Oh, yes.
But I'm curious, what's your sense? What can you offer us just, sort of as an overall about why sound? Why would we even want to sort of move through that or to penetrate that
Mm.
barrier of this is really uncomfortable for me, this is new for
Hmm.
me, this isn't what, I want to do because I've never done it. Give us the overview of the why, and then we'll get into the what and the how.
Sure. Yeah. Well, why not? Well, our body is, I like to say, an acoustic instrument
Mhm.
and a living instrument. And we're always, either responding to sound and vibrations that are in our environment. And when we're speaking, our body is vibrating and resonating to the words we use, the tones we use. And it is, if I mean, in the simplest forms, when done from a place of, let me enjoy this, let me slow down a little and feel these words I'm saying, it feels good throughout the body. So that's, I would say, a big reason.
I love
Yeah.
that. And I love this idea of the body as an acoustic instrument,
Mm.
right? I mean, first of all, that, you know, that the idea of we are our own, our motivation, our desires, that's an idea of, taking charge of an instrument, right? Like we sort of think about that, I'm being
Hmm.
instrumental.
Mm.
And then also this idea of feeling each other's resonance, feeling each other's vibration and
Hmm.
tone. What came up for me just in that when you were talking is how so often what happens in the realm of interpersonal connection, and especially around sexuality, is the invitation, when it comes not with the right tone, can sometimes be the thing that even when mentally we may feel like we want something,
Mm.
the way that the tone comes at us, want to do it is really different than, hey, want to do it,
Hmm.
right? And that just
One
being
hundred.
able to modulate the sound behind the words can
Mm-hmm.
help the body to be more open or be more closed. And
Yeah.
and I often talk about how important it is, especially as partners of people who have a penis that maybe is not always or sometimes wanting to play, that one of the first things that we can do is just come at it with an invitation, which is, for me is always, hi, hi, I'm happy to see you, right? That when we take down those boxers or briefs, that there's that moment of, hey,
Yes.
hi,
Because
there
that's a
you are.
turning towards the relationship, or turning towards that source of sound that, yes, I want to move towards that. We've done that since we were babies, of
Mm,
hearing the voices of our nurturers and turning towards, and we turn towards the
mhm.
warm tones and the tones that soften us. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I literally have seen so many times, a penis that is kind of not quite sure what exactly the minds have decided is going to be happening. And using that softer tonality, I will see, that beginning oscillation and undulation into the tissues that, just like you said, like that baby that moves towards the sound when it isn't even really yet seeing, that I can see that with the penis will do it. I mean, it's really quite incredible that way.
Yeah, there's something about when we shift our voices like that, where we're kind of creating an extension of the sound. So there's movement, there's shape. If we're talking more like this, it's staccato and it breaks, and it doesn't have that elongation that is like, oh, well, let me join into that, and we'll be getting into that a little bit with what we do today.
Let's say that word again, elongation. Right? I mean, that, because that's something, again, sometimes what I hear isn't about the blood flow. It's about, maybe after a prostatectomy or an injury or other things, the penis will retract, that there'll be some retraction. And I do think that as we're encouraging the tissues, especially if there's been trauma, right, to come out again, to be willing to come forth, to, elongate.
Yes.
Right. That in itself is its own little mantra, isn't it?
It is. And, I've seen pictures of the throat and the pelvic floor that look similar to each other. And, when there's vocal injury or tightness in the musculature in the throat and larynx, the restorative exercises are these gentler, soothing sounds before getting into the more rich tones. So I can imagine that translating to other places, bringing it allows the tissue and the muscles to relax and settle.
I love that. I mean, as you're saying that, what I'm imagining is, as someone is having maybe their pre-intimacy, pre-sex ritual, whether it's by themselves or with a partner, maybe while they're taking a shower. We always talk about sing in the shower, but if there's that pelvic tightness, which so many people carry, that having maybe something that they're doing in the shower that is part of the, by opening the throat, they're opening the pelvis.
And yeah.
Right. We're already doing it all. And I also, the other piece, just in terms of what you brought up with the anatomy, is when I started working with men and erection health, one of the things that I thought about a lot was my experience being in prenatal classes, and how, as you're doing birth preparation, we know from birth preparation that opening the jaw, opening the mouth, opening the throat has a relationship to helping the cervix open, helping the pelvis open, and helping the vaginal canal open.
Yes. Yeah.
I use a lot of sound in my own sex life. I'm very vocal in my own sex life because I know that it helps me to stay more open in the pelvis. But I think a lot of men have never been taught this, because it's something that is more about childbearing versus pleasure and sexuality. So I really like that. That's a piece of what we're going to be leading people towards.
Me
Wonderful.
too.
Yeah. Wonderful. Fabulous. So one of the first things that I want to dive into with you is, it's a concept. It's a study that's been done, and I'm going to put it out to us, and then have you then take it from the concept into practice.
Great.
Yeah, great.
Yes.
So what it is there's something called nitric oxide. And nitric oxide is really, really important for our cardiovascular health. And what we know is penis health and cardiovascular health are like, symbiotic twins, right? They really feed off of each other. We need good heart health in order to really have our best erectile flow. And again, I want to say erectile tissue is both in, it's in all genders, right? The clitoris is erectile tissue, the penis is erectile tissue, nipples are erectile tissue. So, as we're talking,
too.
I didn't know that. Okay, excellent. So, you might be turning on my nose today.
I hope so.
So, nitric oxide is really important for this blood flow, and particularly, and you can go online and Google nitric oxide and erections, and you'll see a whole bunch of supplements or nasal sprays or things. But as you go through the Google search, you'll find some scientific studies that are out there, plenty of them, that really talk about erections and nitric oxide. So a few years ago was the first time that I heard about a study that was done that talked about humming and nitric oxide, and how humming can increase nitric oxide 15% above baseline. And, that's a significant increase, probably
Yeah.
more than you would get by taking it, supplementally every day. So it got me thinking about, what is a hum, and how can that come into intimacy and sexuality? And so over the years, when I'm working with men, often I'll encourage some sounds, some humming type of sounds, some type of sounds, and playing with, I'm seeing that something is shifting. Maybe we've had some, and let's bring this in. And I, definitely see that it can make a difference. And then just recently, I was at another training, and this was brought up again. It was a male pelvic pain training where we were talking also about sexual health and erectile function. And there was, again, this importance on getting that hum into our practice. So, Jill, hum. I mean, is that when I'm reading this study, when people are saying hum, is that like I'm thinking, while I'm having sex, I'm like, it's like, I don't really even know, other than for me, it's just a sound I notice I make a lot during sex, which is
Yes. Yes. I'm just taking that in because it's true. I mean, you could hum happy birthday. No, that would be interesting. Yes. Humming that, that we hum more than we realize probably. And probably most of the time it's shorter sounds, we're listening, like even in our conversation, and that kind of response.
Oh, I just did it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so there's a resonance with there's a resonance there of an affirming feeling, or like whether it's like in your masturbation practice, having sex, or that same kind of hum, because that feels good. Also, that smells good, that tastes good, the delicious, that delicious quality. Mm. Mm. And often, again, it's short. With probably what we want to add to that is how to prolong it a little bit, how to play with it, how to sustain it, and find a comfortable way of doing it, where it's relaxing too, and there's a comfortable pitch depending on what's comfortable in, one person's voice versus another. Mm, mm, mm. Those all may hit differently for someone. And so it's feeling which one feels the best in my body, where do I feel the vibrations? So, yeah, I'll stop there for a moment.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
Keep going. Like now you're
Okay.
making me really, you're making me extra curious because, what you just said, where does it feel good in my body? I think I'm not sure that everybody even knows what that means, right? So maybe, take us through a little bit deeper on how we connect to where our own delicious may be.
Great. So I think beginning with that, imagining you're smelling something good, or you're tasting something delicious as the entry point, because that See how even when I imagine that, I'm already feeling a widening in my face. I mean, it's real. I'm not pretending I'm smelling something good. It's that I'm evoking that felt sense of that memory,
Mm-hmm.
and that just feels good when I do it that way. And the humming, I'm not pushing it out. I'm just that one, if you notice, I let it fall a little bit.
Mm.
And when I did that, I even felt this kind of waterfall, like down my body, kind of moving down lower into my body. So it's like using the hum, that the is like a laser point in a way, or tracking through the hum, if there's a sense of vibrations or shift happening in different parts of the body. And it can be really subtle.
Mm.
And again, like even if we're not feeling anything in the moment, something is happening. So um, even being with, I don't know if I feel a change or just something showing up in my body, is not a fail.
Mm-hmm.
It's just information, you know. Yeah.
When you make those longer hums, even for
Hmm.
me as a listener,
Hmm.
um, I feel it's like inside my pelvis, it's like a little inner tickling, like a little
Hmm.
an inner vibration.
Yes. Yeah. I feel that
Mm-hmm.
too.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes me like, when I was thinking about today, how using the hum, using our voice is a tool, just like if you were to use a vibrator or
Mm.
a cockring or a dildo or feathers, what evokes arousal, what evokes sensation. So this is inside of us that we can
Mm.
explore. And so thinking of it as a tool could also feel a little more like, oh yeah, this is important.
Yeah.
Let me bring this into my practice. Let me bring this to my partner and see if we want to explore
Mm.
this tool together.
Ooh. No, I really like that
Yeah.
because as you were doing that longer,
Hmm.
I was thinking, okay, if I was with a partner and they started to just do that, maybe I would feel a little awkward, right? Or I'd be
Yeah.
like, or maybe I wouldn't feel like, or the opposite. If I was with a partner and I wanted to do that,
Hmm.
maybe I wouldn't allow myself to get completely into it. But I love
Mm.
the way that you're connecting this like to pulling a vibrator out, like especially if we're talking about, like maybe there's been some change in erectile function,
Mm.
rather than bring a toy over while the penis rests, or rather than bringing a cock ring out to see if we can get more blood flow going, or a feather to change it, to be able to have this interactive, okay, now let's just do this, like I'm gonna, I might stroke you, and while I'm running my hands up and down your leg, if what I'm doing feels good, really bring the vibration, the vibrator of your inner vibrator. I
Hmm.
mean, that's phenomenal, right? To think about it that
Yeah.
way, because, right, that's like a
Yeah.
whole other thing to be able to stimulate both the
Mm.
blood and the tissue system
Hmm.
from the inside just by doing this resonant vocaling humming. I mean, that's
Hmm.
that's a that's a great little hack there.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Hmm. Gonna humming all day, all the rest of the afternoon. I believe too, our bones are conductors of vibration. So, partly,
Mm.
our skull, um, then we have ribs, our spine, our hips. So even
Mhm.
if we're feeling feeling that kind of grounded physicality of those parts that are vibrating and then coming into the rest of our body, could also help orient to feeling staying in the body while making
Mm.
sound. Especially I notice this with clients of mine in the beginning of learning something that's new with the sound, it's very easy to go into the head, to go into thinking about it, if it's right or wrong. And that's what I love about hum is it's kind of can cut through that a little more easily. And it doesn't have, practicing and doing it kind of on your own outside of sessions with yourself and your partner, like in the shower, humming is quiet in the subway, connecting with like the din, the rev of the sounds around you. And it doesn't, you doesn't even need to seem like you're doing anything. In the car. But still having that a little hint of that, this feels, that feels good.
That feels good. And I love that too, because sometimes, and you've talked to me about this before, that the way that words and language live in the brain compared to sound can sometimes take us out of our experience in the body. So, I know that there's some people who are really good at like dirty talk and talking during sex, but that, for some people, that is the disconnect. Like I know for me, even if someone is saying like, does this feel good? I kind of come out of the experience in order to be able to process that they're asking me something and have to give back. So I've learned that the best way for me to be able to stay inside my own body and not get called out is to be giving feedback through my sound. Right. Yes. Good. This is, like that. I don't have to go into, please touch me here. Please touch me there. Don't touch me here. Don't touch me there. I mean, we can establish all that, at the beginning too, but that the feedback. So I have a specific question about humming for you, because in the study that I read, it talked about how the way the nitric oxide boosts is that the humming is on the exhale, right? And it says something like about the nose, and you talked about the nose as like erectile tissue too. So,
right? Yeah.
So is there like a proper form for humming? Like because there's like that when I hum, think of it coming more from my chest.
Sure.
But lead us through the novice experience of getting into what is a quote unquote right way to hum for the purposes that we're talking about.
Yes. Well, first I'll just say there's many right ways. So I will share a right way, because anything that we do where we're blocking off the air flowing out of our mouth is going to be air flowing out of our nose, which is a hum quality. Even when I even say sing, so my mouth is open, but I'm still buzzing through my nose. But that can be harder to sustain. So so if we're going to hum, the first thing I'll have us do is just notice your jaw right now. Does it feel tight, clenched? Does it feel relaxed? Can even, give it a little hello. And what we want is a little bit of space between the back molars so that there's just a little bit open. Yeah. And I think personally you can inhale through the mouth or the nose, and you can try either one to see what feels better. So I'm going to inhale. And as I'm about to hum, I'm going to close my lips, let my teeth also not touch, just a little space. And I'm really letting it go for the duration of however long I can extend my breath out. We're all going to have different points where we can no longer exhale.
Right.
So, and I can do it for a pretty long time. So don't judge yourself based off of what you hear. As I used to sing opera and my lungs are big. and then give yourself time to like recover and just notice and feel before going into another hum. And I really, in terms of a right way, it's really about noticing if something doesn't feel good physically, stop and
Right.
shift. So if there's a feeling of squeezing in the throat that doesn't feel good, if anything, just be like, oh, let me retry this. So some good ways to some things to remember are, what is my tongue doing? Is it tight? Is it stiff? Is it relaxed against the bottom of my mouth? Even while you're humming, let your tongue move around a little bit and just, see what that feels like as you hum, tracing the back of your teeth. I would even recommend doing a hum where you let your teeth touch a little bit, because you'll actually feel like the little jolts of vibration of the conduction through the bones of your teeth. And that's so apparent. Imagine that that's actually happening to your entire body. So let's do that once, kind of, maybe let's move our tongue around a little bit, relaxed jaw a little bit, and then let your teeth just touch lightly to where you start to feel a little bit of that buzzy quality.
Great. And before we start, I want to just double check one thing. Is a hum always a sound? Is that sort of what makes a hum, or are there other sounds that that we could be playing, that that are there to play with? I mean, I love the sound, but like if someone, I this is a question I just don't even know. Like, is the very
never
nature
thought
of a
about
hum?
that question. I think,
Seems like
I
it.
mean, does. I mean, so whatever sound is going to bring the airflow through your nose, but I wouldn't necessarily call the NG sound. I wouldn't necessarily call that humming.
Yeah.
I mean, we think of humming where you are doing a little ditty or song. So we can even, instead of calling it a hum, we can call it an
Right.
Yeah, it's that. And what's great about having the lips together is, I mean, I feel vibration and buzz happening around my lips. I feel it happening a little bit here. I can feel a little bit of a buzz happening in the center of my forehead.
Oh yeah, I feel that. And in the studies, that's what they say, that that the nitric oxide boost comes through the nasal activation.
Exactly.
So maybe that's whatever the sound is that people choose, that the goal is to find this sense of
the buzz.
Ooh, again, vibrator or sound. Okay. All right. So you were going to take us through a couple hums.
Okay. So, and just again, it's a playful curiosity. So, if your body wants to move, your head, if it wants to move, we're really kind of letting the hum come from a place where there's mobility rather than rigidity and that kind of freeze. So even if there's little tiny movements. So maybe let's do a series of 3 hums, and each one choose a different, like one time choose playing with your tongue, one time choose even playing with your jaw, moving it a little bit. And again, it's a way to steering yourself towards what feels the most comfortable and what feels the most pleasurable to you.
Great.
Okay. So we'll inhale. I'm going to move my next one around a little bit, up and down like this. Even with that one, like I noticed differences in my body as I moved higher and lower. And I don't know if that was a response in hearing that too.
I immediately felt like I was about to do liftoff,
Mm,
right? Like it had that feeling like when a plane is going like, right? However you did that,
yeah. Oh,
because you
that's
were,
true.
right? It was like,
Yeah.
you hear that sound, and I did. My body sort of had this like, where are we?
Mm,
Where is she taking us? Where are we going?
yeah. It's interesting how the hum really, things that we recall with it, like you thought of the plane. I also think of like cars shifting gears, revving that engine,
Yeah.
But these drone sounds that we hear on the daily, are these kinds of hums as well, and yeah, the hum of the universe.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so what you just did, where you changed like going down and going up, I want to just see like, so I'm inhaling, and then I'm starting maybe at higher. Is that like, or lower, or
Sure.
where?
Start where
Low.
either one. Yeah. Why don't you do one starting high
High.
or
I kind of want to start low. For me, it's
yes.
easier to start low.
Okay.
So, and I like, the lower I can, what I like about humming is that while I can't normally get like a baritone pitch if I'm trying to sing, I feel like I can get a lower, like I can feel where the sound is. Again, maybe it's because I can feel my pelvic bones, but I can feel that, like I can tell,
Yeah, that's a nice low. I don't know. I can go that low.
And even though I'm low, I'm feeling it in my nose. So I'm really feeling that connection of,
Yeah.
although what I notice is, like you could hear, I did that all on an inhale, right? So that wasn't in terms of getting the nitric oxide. Like that got me quivery. Like it definitely got me feeling like that in the voice as a vibrator. But for nitric oxide, I would need to be on the exhale. So it'd be.
Wait, you just hummed on the inhale?
I think what I did is I was holding my breath.
But you.
Well, I guess I was exhaling.
Yeah,
too.
it might
See?
feel like you're holding your. So the thing with the hum is it can feel like you're holding the breath because there's not a lot of breath coming out. But if we're humming, there has to be airflow. So if anything, just knowing if there's a hum coming out, there's airflow, it's working, period. Get a little buzz.
Okay, so what I love about all of this is, I often will have people when I'm working with people around blood flow or just kind of getting into their bodies, I'll say, like, every time you're at a red light, notice your genital tissue on the seat, right? Because so often we're walking around or we're sitting and our sense of awareness of our wholeness is like genitals off, right? And it's all of those afferent nerves just waiting to be invited. So I'll say, okay, when you're in your car, every time you're at a red light, just do a little check of, hello, genital tissue, where are my testicles? Where's my perineum? Where are my labia? Where's my, butt? Just kind of like, because we have that proprioception of the seat underneath us. And I love the idea of adding in, because, especially if you're by yourself, that, okay, maybe, because I like having a cue that, when I'm at a red light, I'm just going to add in now to that a couple, or maybe I look around and I notice something too, like, oh, there's a tree, or I'm noticing there's something that I can I can think about, even if I don't see it, right? What I'm hearing from you is I can think about something that delights me, which is always a good practice, right? That sometimes, right? Sometimes erectile function and libido is that we're so bogged down with our like, oh my gosh, everything is just so hard in life. And, we need to bring in that practice of like wonder and awe and delight as as a
Yes.
practice. So I like what you said about, okay, so I could be at my red light, I feel my genital tissue, and then I remember, or I think about, it's like for me, I might think about, when this weekend, I'm going to see somebody that I really love to spend
Mm-hmm.
time with. And I can just, and have that smile. I
Mm-hmm.
like what you said about feeling the closed teeth and the resonance in my teeth, and then the open, a
Mm-hmm.
little bit open. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's such an easy, simple practice,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm. And with humming, that it's not like you don't need to smile when you're humming, but when I do, let there be a little bit of smile, a little bit of, like, when I imagine what feels good, I feel a lift in my face, like my cheeks widen.
Mm-hmm.
And that, when I cue that in, for me, it feels a lot better, and it
Yeah.
feels gentler. I can feel it traveling more, it's without as much pressure.
Well, the
Yeah.
other thing that it's making me think about is that a lot of people have trouble connecting into the pelvic diaphragm, right? So we have
Mm.
our diaphragm, and
Mm-hmm.
then there is like this membrane that we call the
Mm.
pelvic diaphragm. And we want that diaphragm to be able to, have like an expansion and contraction. And that for
Mm.
many people, it tends to be tight and contracted. But when we add in the smile,
Yeah.
right? And again, we know this a little bit from childbirth, but as we add in the smile, there's all of these reflexive, what we do above, we do below.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Exactly.
it's an invitation
Mm-hmm.
it's much easier to get this to spread,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
than it is to think about. I'm trying to think about making this diaphragm that's inside of my pelvis open. But if I just
Mm-hmm.
doing this,
Yeah, I feel that
yeah.
happening in my pelvic bowl, pelvic
Mm-hmm.
floor. Um, so it's in when I work with the voice, and work uh, with trying to elicit certain qualities of sound. I'll say, imagine you're yawning, or like you're going to bite into an apple, to feel it's that lift of, it's what is the soft palate
Mm.
of the roof of the mouth. And that's really where we're feeling that inner smile, that smile coming from.
Mm.
Ha, and that sigh, you say, ha, I feel that lift. Try that.
Ah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then go into the
Ah.
hum and see if you can keep that.
Ah.
Hum.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to think of sound as something that's continuous. We join it, we depart from it, but it's always available. So, and I'm saying that because, like, when we're with a partner and we want to, allow sound to come more into the experience, or by ourselves, and the silence can feel almost like this, so loud, then to shift into, wait, there already is sound and vibration happening, and I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
join it. So it's not just me doing it, and that might be a little, I don't know if that's a little esoteric and naming it like that, but
Mm.
to me, that helps feel like, oh, I'm adding to something that's already happening. There's always,
Yeah.
whether it's a bird or a rustling or a machine or this, we're not in complete silence. So remembering that before might be, I'm not the one who's, breaking this
Mm-hmm.
silence and
Right.
disturbing the
Mm-hmm.
environment. Like, no, there's always little rises and falls of sounds.
That's true. And I like also connecting what you're saying about, the different rises and falls, because sometimes what I hear from people is, and, maybe this has to do with what they see in porn or on
Mm.
movies. And so what we have is an idea of sexy sound. that there's an idea that it has to be loud. And, if you're not a loud person, or if it doesn't come naturally to you to be loud, that is the mind goes to that place. But one of the, I love that up close, just being able, and again, when I'm working with people where their reason is, well, someone might be in the other room, so I'm not going to make sound. And I do this a lot in masturbation coaching. And I'm like, well, it can be just,
Yes.
So it's more just like what would be just a regular exhale kind of,
that might actually open it up more than a louder sound. It's that gentle opening. And even I would suggest purposefully try to make the most quiet sound you can, and that you can still hear. How quiet can you make your sound, and what does that feel like?
Yeah.
And where it can be a hum. And then maybe it wants to grow. Maybe it doesn't. But I think what would help, the quiet sound, but you can hold it, letting yourself, let your breath move the sound.
And that's
and
big.
that'll help with what's going on in the nose.
Yeah, because so many people just don't breathe,
Yeah.
too. So, all of what we're talking about is also just helping, we're just, it's getting the blood flow. Breath helps the blood flow, blood flow. And this type of thinking helps us connect with our breath in a way that doesn't feel, for some people, when I talk with them about, we need to work on the breathing, it becomes this like, oh, I then have to use a lot of cognitive. Yeah. I'm doing 4 quick breaths, 2 long breaths, or 5 this, or I'm doing breath of fire, these different things. And it becomes very much in the mind. But what you're really bringing is, finding and then just working slowly, step by step into, how, can I do this a little bit longer? Can I do this a little bit louder? Can I move it, and undulate it around? I wanted to ask you, I wanted to share something with you that you kind of touched on briefly, and I want to bring it back around. Is one of the things I've noticed about sound in sexuality, or in not even in sexuality, in sex, let's just name it what it is, right? Is like it's not uncommon to have the mind go on its own little trip while the body is doing something else. So in performance coaching, we talk about trying to get the mind body into flow state, right? Where the mind isn't, like, for instance, in basketball, when you're wanting to make that shot, it doesn't generally work if while your body is trying to make the shot, your mind is thinking about the groceries you need to get later. But often that happens during sex. And sometimes also, it just happens where the mind kind of drifts out. Other times, people start to intentionally think about things to keep thinking that that's going to help them stay hard, right? Oh, if I think about if I let myself think about something else, then somehow that's going to stop me from, having an ejaculation, something like that. It steps out. And one of the things that I've noticed is that when I catch myself, whether it's again by myself or with a partner, not having my mind be in the experience, and there's that moment of noticing, like, ooh, I'm not here. How do I get back? Right? I'm picking out tonight's dinner or tomorrow's dinner in the grocery store, and yet, like, I'm having this lovely experience. How do I get back? And while touch can be a way, and, kind of trying to pay attention, what I've found is, if what I do is pay attention to the way touch is happening, and then make the sound of pleasure, right? Because I've left the tactile, right? Someone, or I'm touching myself, right? I can even do it on myself. I'm touching my arm and I'm touching it, but I'm not really paying attention because I'm thinking I'm talking to you now. And so now this is just a motor activity, right?
Yeah.
But if I want to come back to it, I notice it, and then oh, that's nice. And the more that I make sound that connects to the experience, the more I'm able to come back into the body, right? That sound is a really lovely tool to come back into, what we would call flow state
Yeah.
when we've had that break. Because again,
That's
that
beautiful.
type of break, that mind body break, can often be where there's some change in erectile function, or, now I'm feeling, as a woman, maybe now I'm feeling a little bit drier, or I'm feeling like, so, that's
Yeah.
so maybe we can talk a little bit about other sounds that people could use as ways to, enhance, like you were saying, like in the toolbox, in the sound toolbox that goes along with all your other sex toys and paraphernalia. What are some other sounds that people can connect with and activate that can feel maybe even like starter, right? The starter,
Sure. The
the
starter
starter
sound
kit, the
kit.
starter sound, the starter sexual sound kit.
Sound kit. Yeah. Well, first, with what you said, when we vocalize, we're bringing ourselves back into the relational field, back into connection, back into the ventral vagal, which is what bridges connection. Oh, I'm here. Oh, there's other. Or, if I'm alone, this is actually what I'm doing. I'm noticing it. So sound works in that way to bring us into the present, and especially using descriptors, whether it is through or naming, like, that feels good, oh, that touch, that naming what is happening aloud. It's like it amplifies what is happening. And so let's see here, different sounds. So what sounds do you notice?
Well, when I'm working, I can tell you the sounds I work with. So the sounds that I work with, because what often happens, this is what I see happen, right? What I see happen is in a sexological bodywork session where someone is on the table and I'm working on the genital tissue, and maybe there's been some engorgement, and then it can start to subside. And I'll notice, because often that's where my focus is, I'll look up and I'll see that clenched jaw, right? Everything's kind of tight. So that's usually a clue, right?
Sure.
And, either I will start to make some sound, because when I make sound, that creates the invitation for the partner to mimic, right? Even if they don't realize that they're doing it, right? That's just something that happens often with the body is, you're doing it, I'm doing it, especially when we're in deep relaxation, right?
Yes.
And when we're in deep relaxation, when we're feeling safe in a situation, then that kind of invitation can happen just through our sound. So rather than me saying, I really want you to make an O or an ooh sound now, I'll just start. I feel like the vowel, like that's what I'm curious about, because I feel like the sounds of sex for me that aren't language tend to be vowels or the yes, right? So it's the ooh, ooh.
Yeah.
And that all those can, and yes, I notice is a little bit different, because that's not a vowel, that's a consonant, and it kind of I've heard from pelvic floor physical therapists that this can like lift the pelvic floor up a little bit. So, if you're wanting to have a little bit more, up, that the yes, can be
Well, I
the
wonder
sound.
too, is it the S alone, or is there something about the Y and the E beforehand? Because that widens again, he and lifts. Yes.
Well, in what I've heard from pelvic floor people, it's like they're just working with the S, right?
Okay.
But what I see, because I'm seeing it in, action, is I do think it's the yes. Plus, yes is something that is that is an encouraging, like, when you're with a partner and they're just laying there and you don't know if what you're doing feels good, that's also like we communicate are we okay together, right?
Yeah.
Through the that all of what we're talking about are sounds of consent, right? Or the opposite. I was thinking when you were talking earlier about, you were saying about the, we were talking about the as an invitation, but the can also be a
Yeah, definitely.
right? Like, But if I was coming to touch your hair, let's say, and if you said, "Don't touch me," right? Then my response, then I'm gonna. That's a very closed, right? But if you said, then that I can feel the no. I think the no, it's important for people to be able to express their no's, but at the same time, again, if we're trying to stay in a state of play, that's a little bit different, to be able to have the difference between that, to be able to help our partners with a yes, and similarly a mm, 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 right? There's the that I'm not so sure. I'm curious. I'm going to let you go a little bit more on there, and then I'm going to let you know yes or no. Yeah.
Yes.
So lead us through, like, what's your thoughts again? Like, I just named a couple things from what I see about vowels, but are there practices like around, if I was somebody who didn't, I'm not comfortable making sound, but I'd like to bring in some more, because now I'm hearing like, oh, this can help me come back into my body, can help me connect with my partner, can help me connect with myself, but I'm still, I need to practice this maybe a little bit in a non-sexual way, and then bring it into maybe my solo practice as a safe place to start. So what is a way that's sort of like the non-sexual way to connect to bringing in some like vowel and simple consonant or simple words?
Well, similar to humming, approaching it like, toning, which is again sustaining a sound, which you sustaining a vowel sound. So, we have, I'll just name the different vowels. Okay. In my discoveries with my own body and sound, each vowel has a different effect on me. So, ooh, a, e, I think a, e, o, u. Yeah. So there's 5 main, they're called pure vowels, just because you don't have to do anything to adjust the tongue and manipulate for the vowel to come out. That's what's wonderful. That's why vowels are so special. They are just exist. So that's the scientific definition. They just exist. So with ah, like adding a little H in front of it, that helps the breath connect with the ah sound. I'll do it. So, I mean, that has a volume. So I don't know someone who would be a little more reserved. Can be quieter. Lower can be quieter often than higher sounds. Playing it with it like the hum. O, I like O because where ah is, to me, it opens, it's expansive. For me, O has a little more containment. My lips are a little more contained, and it feels like it stays more in my body. And play. And even as I do this, like the ideas of like, what is ah and what is oh, and then I remember, no, but I get to explore, if my jaw's a little more open or closed, or how vowels really arise from how we're shaping our mouth. So you can come up with your own version of vowels based on what feels good of how your jaw is, how your tongue is, how wide, how narrow. Like ooh, ooh is like you're smoking a cigarette or sucking a straw. Ooh. And it can be even like breathy too. So I'm giving examples. I'm not necessarily explaining, um, more than that.
I think the examples are great because this is, like I said, this is sort of what can people do again in their car, in the shower, on their own. That's just an entry into playing with different vowel sounds. And I like what you're saying, which is that the vowels just, they are what they are, right? And
they are what they are.
They are what they are. So, and where I go with it is as you're doing each one of these, I'm thinking, right, like, there's a genuine, let's say you're, you're using a vibrator, on yourself, then there's these moments of finding, something might feel good or not even good. Like there might be a moment of it's a surprise of good, right? And that to allow yourself to be like the ooh, and that sometimes the O turns to the ooh. Ooh, right. So that some of these vowel sounds are what I see in like bringing them into masturbation or sexual play is they're kind of like they're again in terms of the tool of enhancement that you're talking about, that allowing yourself to have sound, it's like it's also a way, like in masturbation practice, of dialoguing with yourself. Right? Without having to go into whole fantasy story, but to have this experience of the ooh, and discovering, like, is an is going from the ooh to the to the of like that's an unexpected feeling, to the ooh, this is something's happening here, to the I can hang out in it, hang out in it, that can be really helpful, right? To allow the vocalization. So going from the I'm just practicing in the car, the shower, while I'm in the car, or I'm sitting at the sink or whatever it is I'm doing, just playing with this, to then I think it's helpful to try doing these things alone first, because, it is a little odd to bring sound in for people. And then to find the way where it then becomes interactive cueing and playing with other.
Yeah. Yeah. And, adding a dimension of, as I vocalize, as I make sounds through my mouth, through my lips, I'm really connecting that with like the lips of my, vulva is making is the sound as well. Or, if I had a penis, how I would imagine the sound is coming through the tissue or the head, the shaping inside of it. It really, then it becomes like talking about going back to like erotic trance. It really can turn into this like erotic sound meditation.
Exactly.
And personal anecdote is years ago, I was exploring sound more in my own masturbation practice. And for the first time, I was like, well, let me be really intentional about this and tone vowels. And it was the first time that I had a vaginal orgasm, like inside, just using my finger, not needing any other kind of stimulation. And it really, that I felt the amplification of the vowels, of the tones, just reverberating. And it was as though the shapes of the vowels and the sounds were happening dually, from my mouth and from my vulva.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. It brings up for me too that sometimes, like, what we've been talking about in the beginning, it's fun. I can hear Rosie's the dog's fingernails. What we started out but talking about is the using the mouth and the sound, like using up here to activate below. Right. But what I've noticed when we practice this and we play with it is part of what happens eventually is that then it becomes like that the penis, doesn't really have a mouth of its own. The vagina, maybe a little bit more. We can, get some air up there and make some noises.
Yes.
But that there actually comes a point where when the body is really working all together as a whole, that if we allow ourselves, if we give ourselves permission for these sounds of pleasure to be part of our sexual experience, then it's like, to me, it becomes that the mouth is the mouth of my pussy. The mouth is the mouth of the cock, of the dick, right? That it's not, here's the mouth and here's the genitals, but that actually, if we think about the whole spine, the whole torso, the way the whole torso exists, in the body, that the sound becomes, it's not up here and it's down here and there's nothing in between, but that feeling something down below, and that down below feeling of pleasure is moving through my spine. Those afferent nerves are sending signals that go up through my spine and signal to my brain, make a sound, connect, right? Connect. Like, this is nice. This feels good. And, often what we see is, like, what I see is that where sound often exists, if it does exist in sex, is in the finale. That that men give themselves permission to make sound in the ejaculation, which many think is also the orgasm and everything else, right? But that in whatever that end thing is, like, that's where the buildup is happening. And so the body, as it's getting ready to release, there's also a vocal release. But I've seen and heard many a time somebody strain themselves, strain their voice in their orgasm, strain their, get so much of a strain as they're pushing out through their voice, and they can end up maybe with like a little headache afterwards. So, before we kind of wrap things up, I'm throwing this one at you on the, the cuff, but
give it to me.
Do you have any suggestions for when, especially for men, when they are having that orgasm? That is a big feeling of everything sort of tightening and moving towards that the throat wants to constrict and make that, right? It's all very constricted. How can we help shift that so that the sound can be part of the releasing without there then being that, like, ooh, I now have like, no, in my throat? Any suggestions for that?
Yeah. I mean, immediately that makes me think of, weightlifting at the gym. I've worked with a trainer for a long time, and you hear grunting, and people can also hurt their voice, hurt their throat when they're making the sounds, lifting the heavy weight. I imagine it's just the same kind of thing. And both with sounding and sex, which is also a athletic event, and, with the weightlifting, is the breath comes first. So the breath, letting your voice move with the breath rather than squeezing. So again, letting the H, like, often I say H because that's a beginning of a vocalization, but it's not voiced. It's like the S. So then you add the, and then you can go on with that. It's all, I think a big piece was how the beginning of how you make the sound will support the duration of getting to then be in the sound and move all over with your sound. And it may take some, especially if you're used to just grunting and having that kind of stuckness, it could take some trying, and it may feel silly or weird because suddenly you're like, am I singing my orgasm? Which, why not?
Why not?
But think of it as you're letting your breath flow. You're not holding your breath and letting sound come out. So, and that's something that I say, there's ways to break that down, but just in short, I would say that, if that makes sense.
Totally. That totally makes sense. Yeah. Yes. Wonderful. Great. Well, much. So we've covered so much. We are looking at the health benefits, the actual physiology of nitric oxide and ways that, if we find ourselves in a situation, either we're noticing in a partner or we're noticing in ourselves where we're like, maybe we want to encourage some blood flow, that making some and some hum and pulling that out of our, I love, out of our sex toy box. That the whole idea of inner vibration, of an inner vibrator, and just even how we warm ourselves up. I'm going to have a date tonight, and I'm going to just like start, in order to switch gears from my, like, I'm at work, I've been at work all day, and now I have to get sexy to be able to, I like to dance. I like to listen to music that has more of that like drum and bass for that reason. But I love the idea now of, maybe I'm just going to like add a little bit more of my own, like, humming along to kind of get my bones in gear.
Yeah.
And, shifting, that sense of, being able to play, that this is a playfulness, that we can invite each other, that using our sounds and our breath is connective. It's inviting,
let
it's
yourself
connective.
laugh and giggle.
Yeah. That's so good. So Jill, how do people get more of you, right? You work with people. So what's their way if they wanted to explore this more or connect with you, either because they want to work on their speaking voice or their singing voice, or, connecting to tone and seeing how this plays out? How do people work with you?
Well, you can find me. My website is the vocal, and I have my Instagram handle is at the, and those are probably the two best ways. And there's information about what I do and how I work on my website, a little more about me. There's some soundscapes that I've done with my voice on there. And it's all vowels, and it's not with words. So speaking of,
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to share with the Soft Cock Appreciation Week community. We really, just value what you have brought. I'm so grateful for your wisdom and your gentle way of leading us through this. And I hope that, people will try some of these ideas out and let us know what you discover or what questions you may have. Jill Carnay, thank you so very much. And, for now, we will say, happy Soft Cock Appreciation Week. And
thank you. This has been a pleasure.
Yes. All right. Bye-bye.